Welcome to the podcast, the video form of the podcast. This is a little bit different than I'm used to because I'm not filming. I'm just talking. My name is Russ Jones. I host the ADHD Big Brother podcast. You can find it on all of your platforms and now here, as we see. But I wanted to share this one specifically because it's a video, and I had the most amazing conversation with Dr. Shane Calhoun, and for a little backstory on me, I am very, I run a community for ADHDers. I coach ADHDers. I'm still, and I'm riddled with it myself, but I have such an adverse sort of reaction to the term dopamine, to the neurotransmitter. It's just, I can't, it's all skull spaghetti and zippy zappies in my head. And he's one of these guys that just has such a great way of explaining it. And that's why I asked him to come on the show. He agreed, and it was a phenomenal conversation. Like, check this out. So I'm excited to get to it. But let me just read you who the heck he is. Dr. Shane, and here, I'll put it right here. There you go. Dr. Shane Calhoun is a clinical health psychologist who specializes in adult ADHD. Good. He has several master's degrees. Wow. And he graduated with his doctorate from Loma Linda University in 2012. He's been licensed for over a decade. And in the last year, he left his position as the training director at Cal Poly Humboldt to invest in the neuro-diverse community. Thanks, dude. Through his private practice. He has been a guest host on both radio, podcasts, helping people in the neurodiverse community advance on their own personal wellness journeys. It's like, what an awesome dude. Am I right? Or am I right? I think I'm right. And you can find more about him on his profile on Psychology Today. I'll put the links in the show notes for that. And he also runs ADHD counseling groups, which is one of them is starting in July 9th. And he said that you don't have to show up at July 9th. You can sign up whenever. And you can get more information about that at calhouncounselingservices.com. And God, this was such a juicy conversation. Oh, and if you're interested in some of the stuff they talk about in the groups, some of the popular things that they talk about are understanding ADHD in terms of the brain chemistry, which is what we're going to do on this conversation too. It was so good. Accessing your motivation so you can do what you intend. He calls them be nice skills. Neurodiversity as a culture, destigmatize and managing shame and rejection sensitivity by understanding our shared experience. So cool. And then ADHD and romance, learning to trust oxytocin, the bonded relationships, over dopamine, which are exciting relationships. And how to communicate to partners around symptoms and coping strategies. It's awesome. Let's just get right into it. Guys, this is the conversation with Dr. Shane Calhoun, already in progress. Let's go. Okay, you and I, we had this conversation before, and you're literally the first person I think on the face of this planet that has ever presented the chemicals and the neurotransmitters and things like that in a way that I actually got, or that you actually made it interesting to me. Because I'm the type of person that I've had this hate relationship with dopamine since the very beginning. I'm like, I can't see it, can't taste it, I can't manipulate it like Play-Doh. So how do I resonate with it? And you were the first person to open my eyes a little bit to that. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can, like, why is it important for me to know about the chemicals? And then let's just go from there. Because
Yeah. Absolutely, Russ.
yeah,
It has to be tangible. It has to make sense. And if it's not pragmatic, it doesn't mean anything.
yeah,
So I really appreciate you saying that, and hopefully I can shed some light on that and bring it down to where it is pragmatic and help us know where the rubber meets the road.
thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Because my brain is just, it's skull spaghetti to me. So if you could, I mean, the obvious neurochemical or neurotransmitter would be dopamine. So I don't know if you want to explain it the way you explained it to me, and then we can hit the other ones, because you said some really cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you want me to just jump right in right now?
Totally. Yeah. What the F is dopamine, dude?
So
And why
it's
do I give a
go
shit? And why?
Dopamine is go juice. It helps us act on our motivation. In neurotypical world, when they're motivated to do something, their brain just naturally produces this stuff that allows them to do what they want to do.
Mhm.
and which is super cool. I would love if that were a part of our community. But what happens with us is that we get all motivated to do something, and maybe it's within our dopamine river, and maybe not. And if it's in our dopamine river, boy, we can go and we can focus, and we can be very productive, and even more so than the average person. I mean, we become these
Yeah.
hyper focus powerhouses. And then if it's not in our dopamine river, it doesn't matter if we are highly, highly motivated to act, to do something. If we're in task paralysis or brain fog that day, we just can't act, and we can't do what we want to do without pumping ourselves up first, trying to get our dopamine on the topic that we want it to be on. And so there's all these strategies that we can use to do that, but we have to understand a little bit more about dopamine, and what it is and how it works. So really, dopamine kind of shows up in our brain. The two pragmatic ways that it shows up is in our feel good center, where it hits us, and we feel really good, and that's kind of in the back of the brain down in the emotional mind, and then also in the front of our brain, where our focus and attention, our time management, all of our executive functioning lives. And as ADHDers, as part of our community, our brain kind of knows that we are missing this dopamine. We are missing something. And so we reach for dopamine. We want to get this chemical in our brain. And unfortunately, a lot of times we reach for unhealthy versions of dopamine. So let me explain what that is. Um, we tend to have addictive habits. Any addictive habit is a dopamine agonist. It makes us have dopamine, whether it's gambling or alcohol or pornography or drugs. In the neuro-diverse community, it's not if you're addicted, it's what are you addicted to.
Mm.
We struggle so much with that because we know that there's something missing. And there are easy ways to find that chemical, but there are excellent ways to get that chemical. Dopamine comes when you feel productive, when you have adventure, when you exercise, when you have novelty of experience, new sensations, when you do healthy things, when you eat healthy food. Our brain produces dopamine, and and it's a little bit harder to get that kind of dopamine, but that's the kind of dopamine that shows up in the front of our brain where we need it, where we
God,
can focus.
that's a tough one, big time, because like the stuff that you're talking about, the addictive stuff, that's so easy to do and
Yeah,
it's quick fix. And the stuff that you're talking about, the healthy stuff is a fucking slog.
yeah.
Is like what would how do we get to the other end of, like, we know the stuff that will produce the positive dopamine, or you know but what do we do to get into that realm? That's, oh my god, what's the secret?
Okay. So when we think about healthy dopamine,
Yeah.
we think of any non-addictive ways to engage in wellness. And you see this a lot of times just in, what doctors are always trying to get people to do,
Yeah.
but it's a problem for us because we can't always, wake up with the dopamine necessary to invest in a life that will get us more dopamine. So
Right.
we're in this catch 22 where some days we wake up and we're in brain fog and task paralysis, and all of our dopamine is, back in the back recesses of our brain, or maybe, we just don't have it in us that day to do what we want to do. So we have to understand that there are ways to pump ourselves up. You know, if you are not doing what you want to do, it's not, oh, I just need to abandon this. It's
Right.
what do I need to do to shock my nervous system to get me back up and running, to let go of the urge of reaching for the easy dopamine, like social media, video
Yes.
games, those quick, easy, our phones. Oh, they're so addictive.
Hmm.
How do we let go of the urge and learn to trust the gentle discomfort that our brains have when we are trying to invest in healthy dopamine?
I love how you called it the gentle discomfort. When I would like to take that a little more dramatic, if you don't mind. The god awful, horrendous slog of you made it like just this gentle little discomfort. No, yeah, it's what are some of the things that like when you're talking when you're helping people that ways in my head I'm thinking, okay, I need to find a way to have fun before I start my day or something
So
like that.
yeah, I would love to say wake up and have fun, and that's going to be the best way for you to be productive throughout your day. But the first hit of dopamine you get in a day is going to be what your brain chases for the rest of the day.
Wait a minute. Dig into that. What?
Okay. So if you wake up and the first thing you do is reach for easy dopamine, you turn on your phone, you look at see what everybody's doing on social media, you play a
Yeah.
little game, you watch a YouTube video, TikTok video, um, your brain is absolutely getting dopamine, but it is also spending a lot of the nutrients it needs to focus and pay attention. And ultimately, when you're done, you're no better than you were when you started.
Right.
And additionally, your brain has just been reminded that it's missing a chemical, and there is a really easy way to get that
No
chemical.
shit. Oh man.
And why would you go exercise when you get the same chemical from looking at your phone? Why expend
Wow.
the energy? Why meditate? Why exercise? Why cook yourself a healthy breakfast? Why make your bed? But conversely, if you wake up and you hop out of bed and you get something nutritious in you and you make your bed and you look and you see, I made my bed, I did the dishes from my breakfast. There is a part of that that does feel good.
Hmm.
When we have a short productive task, nothing that's long and endless, those really long monotonous tasks without ending don't give us a reinforcement at the end. For us, we have to have a shorter productive task first thing in the morning, so that we
That's
have
brilliant.
the energy to complete it and still get the dopamine hit at the end of it. This is kind of maybe
Wow.
another issue, but if we have a long task, we burn through all of our dopamine focusing, and then we don't get the sense of accomplishment at the end, and we're less likely to do those long tasks in the future. So we've just punished ourselves for
Wow.
doing a good job. Whereas if we do a short task, we get a dopamine hit. We get, hey, I just did a thing good for me.
Okay. Okay. Wait a second here, because I knew this was going to happen. Where it's you're a mind blower, dude. You're okay. So the there's two things. I got to say a couple of things. I may ramble just for a minute, but the what I'm hearing you say is that it's okay. If I were to wake up in the morning and make my bed, boom, little dopamine hit. Because yeah, I totally agree, and I've done that before with making the bed. But exercise is a long slog. If I'm getting up and I'm doing 5 push-ups right when I get up in the morning, am I getting that dopamine hit and saying, "Oh, exercise. Oh, I feel a little bit more sexy right now because I just did 5 push-ups and I feel a little bit pump it up or whatever." Is that resonating with? Am I thinking right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anytime you cross something off your list and say, I did it, I accomplished a thing, a thing that I was motivated to do, I did it. That is going to give us a sense of accomplishment. Now,
Oh.
exercise is particularly good because of a few additional things that we haven't discussed, and that's blood flow
Mhm.
and maintaining the glucose necessary in your brain to produce dopamine in the first place, which we struggle with. Blood flow
Yeah.
is a thing for us. And also, when we exercise, we release another chemical, endorphins, which one, those feel good in and of themselves. Two, it hyperdrives our dopamine for 5 hours. So if you did, let's say, 30 minutes of exercise, for the next 5 hours, your brain produces 2.5 times the amount of dopamine that it would otherwise. And that has a very strong cascading effect on other neurotransmitters, other stimulants in your brain, and other antidepressants, which, let me just say, 300 years ago, there was this German guy who discovered this thing where people had a hard time paying attention. You know, he didn't call it ADHD, but he described it. And he said, but don't worry, I have the cure. I've got the cure. It's riding horses and it's exercise.
And you said this before. I don't remember the whole. I get the exercise. Why horses?
Well, we have this thing um, called body doubling, is what I call the skill, but mirror neurons in our
Yeah.
brain, which absorbs the focus and mannerisms of the people around us. And when we are around a large animal like that, our body knows that that is not safe to just be around an animal and not be aware of what it's doing. So it wakes us up. Our brain is like, this is a little extreme, it's a little dangerous. So it wakes us up to be able to pay attention to this thing. And horses, by nature,
Yeah.
are very zen-like
Yeah.
animals.
Yeah.
And when we mirror neuron with them, when we look at them and we understand what's going on in their brains, we recreate a lot of the pathways in our brain, and it provides us a sense of calmness. So it's both a stimulant and an anxiety reducer.
That's
And
so crazy. I
yeah,
get
so
so okay, sorry, I interrupted.
So horses, yeah, are actually, in fact, excellent for individuals with ADHD. But so are dogs and cats and other small animals. But there is something kind of magical about horses.
Could
There's a
we take it to
whole
the next level? We get an elephant. I mean, we could go bigger. That's
I
amazing.
like the way you're thinking. And you know what? That is our culture. If a little bit is good, let's
All
do
of
it
it.
all. Let's go to the extreme.
That's hilarious. Okay, I wanted to say this one thing about the making the bed. I had a buddy that I worked with. He was like myself. We both have depressive disorder, so we would, talk about that at work, but talk about our downerness. But he said, I go, so what do you do? And he makes his bed every morning, and he knows if he's going to have a good or a bad day. If he forgot to make his bed,
Hmm.
he was like, it was something I have control over, and it's me saying, look what I did. I took care of myself. And I'm like, oh, that was beautiful. I thought that was pretty rad. So it speaks to what you're saying about you get a little rush.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When we have that sense of accomplishment. And here's the cool thing about that. For the rest of the day, your brain is going to remember how good it felt to be productive.
God dang it, man. So my big takeaway at the moment right now is first thing in the morning, what are you doing to create the thing for the day of your dopamine, right? Or it would be like, so if I'm going to make my bed and go for a walk, I've already set the stage that doing some exercise, getting out in nature or getting outside or is my thing. Um, that sounds like a
Yes.
challenge I'm going to bring into my community, man. I'm going to be
So
like, okay, make your bed every morning for 30 days. Let's go.
let me pose the hypothetical. Like
Okay.
we have a very complex problem around planning like this because we have chronic sleep problems. That also tends to be something related to ADHD. When we're laying in bed and our attention is jumping around and finds a dopamine laden topic to focus on, it wakes us up. Dopamine's a stimulant.
Hmm.
Or a stressful topic. Guess what? Stress is a stimulant too.
Hmm.
And our brain likes stimulants. It's kind of low on dopamine, so it'll plug it in with anxiety as a stimulant if we're not
Yeah,
giving ourselves the dopamine, which is why we have a 40% comorbidity with anxiety disorders.
that is just nuts. And it's a sad statistic, but it's also not surprising, right? It's like that all makes good sense to me.
So you wake up in the morning, and if you have not gotten good sleep, your brain is full of cortisol, it's full of stress chemicals, and being productive in that state first thing in the morning feels absolutely out of reach, and we tend to resent things that we're trying to do but can't do. And instead of stopping and taking a breath and being like, okay, this is a plan B day, I need to do a little recovery, we go, well, this is a thing that I thought I was going to be able to do, can't do it, so we abandon it.
Hmm.
And that is why it is so hard for us to maintain a balanced lifestyle, because we have uh, sleep difficulties and we have rhythmic symptoms. Some days you might exercise, get good sleep, and you'll wake up, and for no reason that we can identify, we are in brain fog or task paralysis. And we can't do the thing that we feel good, we should be able to do it. We're not tired, and we can't do the thing that we wanted to do. And we have to be really mindful. And mindfulness is such an important piece for our community
Hmm.
because if we try to do something that we can't do, it's a punishment to ourselves.
Oh, man.
And we have to stop. And if we're aware, oh, I'm in task paralysis, hey, we've got skills for that. We've got stuff we can do. And if none of that stuff works, which sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it helps, we can go, okay, this is a plan B day. What do I do to not burn all my bridges? And what do I do so that tomorrow I can be back at my plan A day?
Can you talk about that a little bit? I think that's the first time I've heard you talk about Plan A and Plan B day. Can you define those
Yeah,
and
plan
talk
A
a?
is like, because we have time blindness, we have a day that's
Mhm.
good and we orchestrate our lives as if every day is going to be good. Of course, it's going to be great. I feel good. I'm motivated. I'm on fire. I'll
I
join
know.
5 clubs. I'm gonna start a new hobby, and of course, I'm going to be able to finish my hobby.
Yeah.
And we just get like really on fire. Sure, I'll take 20 units this semester, of college.
Yeah.
And then we have, for no apparent reason, the next 3 days, we are like, we have a hard time paying attention. Our dopamine river is off somewhere else, and we are left going, I can't even keep all these things in my head that I was going to do. I didn't even put them in my calendar because it was easy for me yesterday to remember everything and to hold that all that in my head. And now I don't remember exactly what I was supposed to do, and we forget things and we don't have
Yeah.
it all written down. And that is a plan B day. We have to know that our coping strategies need to be different on plan B days. On a plan A day, you just go, you hit the priorities and you do what needs to be done. And you also have to be aware that not every day is going to be like that day.
That's really
Because
good.
if we get caught up in that mistake, we feed our rejection sensitivity, and we feed our sense of inadequacy because we imagined that we should be able to do this, and other people feed that too. Oh, we know you're smart enough.
Yeah.
We know you can do it because we saw you do it before. We know that too. You're not telling us anything new, but today we can't. And so being able to let go of the shame, let go of the stigma, and this is why community is so important. Our
Mhm.
community is so important because we have to help each other let go of the stigma so we don't build up identities around our broken promises to ourselves.
Mm, yeah.
And we say, this is a plan B day. I am going to energize myself as much as I can, and make sure that I hang in there. But I know maybe it's not going to be a great day. It's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable to do the things that I want to do. It's going to cost me a little bit more dopamine, and I'm going to get a little bit less reinforcement as a result. So I have to be very mindful around that.
Mhm.
And I have to make sure that I'm, investing in my social support and my connections, and I'm not like abandoning my friends.
Yeah, man, I really feel for everything that you're saying because I relate to it harshly of the on a plan B day for me. Oh man, so I'm just getting choked up even thinking about it. It's like the um the idea that it's super easy to abandon like on those days. So to try to, it's almost like damage control. A plan B day would be um make sure you're reaching out to people and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
God dang, that hit me hard. You know what? You had talked about, there's a couple of things I want to talk about, but you had said a thing to me, speaking of like, I think it was serotonin, right? Depression.
Yeah.
And can you talk about that? Because that how that chemical works really affected me. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So let me talk about that in the context of all of our antidepressants and all of our stimulants, because
Okay.
it's worth understanding. When we're low on other stimulants in our brain, when we're low on these, what I think of as slow acting stimulants that kind of build up in our system over time, we reach for unhealthy dopamine. We reach for that over and over again instead of investing in the areas that will create balance and wellness for us over time. We reach for the quick stuff. And the dopamine is the quick stuff, and it feels good, and we like that. But a lot of times we abandon these other really important things. And then if we do that too long, a couple weeks down the road, we find ourselves uh, just there's not enough dopamine in the world to compensate for lack of serotonin, lack of oxytocin. So let me talk about what these other ones are. So if we are first off having a lot of healthy dopamine in our life, adventures, we're around people who are fun and energetic, and we're having like enough diversity in our lives, we're investing in our hobbies, we're feeling productive, and we're moving towards our goals. Our brain is producing all this healthy dopamine. And with that higher level of dopamine, our brain is able to synthesize norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is what you think of as a slow acting version of dopamine made from dopamine. And it's an antidepressant. It's a very powerful antidepressant. In fact, if you went to a doctor and said, I'm depressed, they might give you Wellbutrin or bupropion. They're norepinephrine stimulants to get you kind of back up. And they take a couple of weeks to kick in. So, what you're doing now in terms of your wellness will impact you 2 weeks down the road. So, norepinephrine is really great. It's important. But then there's endorphins. We talked about this. If you exercise 30 minutes a day, this is why this is the most effective treatment for ADHD outside of stimulants. Uh, our brain gives us 2.5 times dopamine and 5 times the amount of norepinephrine synthesis for 5 hours. I mean, that is a huge amount of stimulant
Yeah.
for 30 minutes a day. And that is why that has to be part of our lifestyle. Good sleep and exercise are absolutely vital to our wellness.
God damn it, Shane. Why couldn't you say video games? Why couldn't it have been video games?
Oh, gosh, I wish. I had to break my video game system in college so that
Really?
I didn't fail out. I was looking at my lifestyle and I could not pull myself away from that easy dopamine. And in a moment of clarity, I was like, in an hour, I'm gonna want to play again. So I had to like
Wow.
destroy, and there were moments of strong regret. But guess what? I'm a doctor now, so it worked.
You did it. Man, I
Like,
took the wrong track. Gosh, I kept playing the video game. Oh, you got me on that one, dude.
well,
That's so interesting. The 30 minutes, what is there like I mean, you follow the science, right? So it's like what is the thing of 30 minutes of what? Of running, of
light
light
cardio.
cardio. Okay. Power
It doesn't
walking?
have to be much. It really doesn't have to be much. Get your heart rate up. And you can look up what constitutes cardio for your
Yeah,
age,
yeah.
weight, and body type. And there's all sorts of information out there on what cardio means for you.
Wow.
But it just doesn't have to be much. In fact, even 5 minutes of getting your heart rate up is going to increase the amount of glucose and oxygen in your brain, and that's going to allow you to produce dopamine. So even 5 minutes is beneficial.
Yeah. I think I can dumb this down for myself to the point where I can just say exercise for 30 minutes equals I will be my my well-being will be better. It's the I get lost a lot when we talk about glucose and synthesis and all that. I'm like, I don't know how my food like, when you eat, your saliva breaks, it goes down and then it mushes, and then what vitamins get sucked out. I don't. But if I say eat vegetables equals healthier.
Hey, all what I'm talking about with blood flow and glucose, all that means is your brain consumes 22% of your daily calories, which means it is the most
Wow.
calorie consuming part of your body. So,
Wow.
if your blood sugar drops, if you haven't eaten in a while, your brain doesn't have what it takes to produce go juice. You cannot produce dopamine, and you won't feel it right away if you have reserves, but it glucose doesn't absorb immediately. It's kind of a slower absorbing thing, so you have to maintain healthy nutrition. And if you're eating a bunch of sugar and having it spike and then getting hungry and letting it drop, that is playing that's just terrible for your ability to focus, for your long-term focus. You'll focus for moments at a time, you'll get a dopamine hit, and then you'll burn through it. So stability and getting good exercise and good blood flow, more blood flow means more nutrients gets through, which means you're able to produce dopamine. Basically, if you can maintain steady food in your diet and you're not letting your hunger get too strong, if you're maintaining good blood sugar levels by eating healthy, your brain will be able to produce the focus that you need.
That is super, super interesting. I think the one of the biggest parts of this too that you had mentioned is the thing like I could do something poorly for my health today, and I could have a depressive episode in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and I
So
wouldn't even know that it was because I had 3 pieces of pizza and I got drunk or whatever it was. It would be like because it's not in the moment.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And because we have
That
time blindness,
sucks.
that gets so hard for us to monitor. So, but let me kind of talk about that fourth antidepressant, that
Mm,
fourth stimulant, serotonin.
mhm.
Because yes, it takes norepinephrine takes a couple of weeks. Serotonin takes at least 2 weeks. Serotonin is what SSRIs. If you went into a doctor's office, said I'm depressed, most of the time they give you an SSRI, an antidepressant. That's serotonin, but we produce serotonin when we are surrounded by people who love us, when we are accessing our friendship, when we sleep well, when we eat healthy. Those three things our body has put in the same category: sleep well, eat healthy, and be around people who respect you and love you. And if we can do that, and and feed ourselves that way, in 2 weeks, we have this whole nother layer of resilience, and we need less dopamine in our lives to do the same tasks. We become more stable and we become internally stronger and more resilient.
That's beautiful. That's friendship and connection and um that's amazing because like yeah, there'll be times because I'm single at the moment, I'm divorced and great relationship with the ex and all that business, but that part where the kids are with their mom and I'm by myself, that level of loneliness is really, and I find that on the times when I'm checking with my buddies, go have dinner and stuff like that, those are nicer times than the times when I'm like, I'm just gonna stay at home.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we have to monitor, am I spending the amount of time around people that's going to benefit me? And there are some days maybe we don't need as much. And that's fine. And this is confusing because there's no doctor prescribed amount of social life that is going to
Right.
benefit you, right?
Make more friends. You need to make 3 friends this week. That's the prescription.
Yeah, well, like we all have our own threshold of
Yeah.
what benefits us. But the thing about depression is it's so sneaky. It says, look, people cost you energy. Why would you spend energy when you're low energy? Just chill at home, you're fine. I
Yeah.
mean, let's stay up late watching YouTube and you'll feel good. And if you feel good, that means you don't need people as much. And so then the next day we have less energy, and the next day we have less energy until the idea of going out and making friends is just unfathomable.
Oh yeah, and they're like, and they don't want to see me anyway.
Yeah.
But they're like your best friends. There's no reason to think that, and yet they don't want to be around me. I'm convinced of it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh God, what a
Absolutely.
horrible.
Because serotonin is the identity chemical. When we have good serotonin, we can change our identity and we can actually
What?
see ourselves and give ourselves updates and see ourselves as we truly are and not some crappy thing we did 10 years ago. We love to do that when we're depressed, when we don't have serotonin. We look at a thing we did or a failure that we had and we say, well, that's who I am.
I'm a big dumpy loser.
Yeah.
Noted. Yeah.
And so when we have serotonin, we are surrounded by people who reflect good things to us. It nourishes us. It allows us to go, oh, no, no. I'm the kind of person who values friendship. I'm the kind of person who values peace and harmony. I'm the kind of person who values productivity. I can't always honor those values, and that sucks. But that's who I am, and I will always be investing and working towards that.
God
And
dang.
that feels good when we can identify with our values instead of our mishaps.
That's amazing. And then how do you work with people? Like you're so dang like I cannot tell you enough like that the way that you speak to this stuff is so clear to me, and you're talking in words that are usually not clear to me at all. And I'm like, is this what you do when you're working with people? Like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. If you understand why you should exercise, you're going to exercise. But you know what? Nobody ever explains that. Nobody ever breaks that down. Why
Right.
is dopamine healthy or unhealthy sometimes? I don't know. It's the dopamine. If I do a bunch of drugs, I get my dopamine, right? Like we have to know why something helps. And when we understand where we can make a difference, now it's not some doctor telling you to do something that is
Mhm.
archaic and doesn't make sense. It's now I have imbued this person with the power to understand why they need to do something or not that day, why exercising is a bad idea that day, and why, and be able to make that decision mindfully rather than going, well, I didn't do it, so it must be a thing that I don't do. Or maybe it doesn't help because we tell ourselves that all the time,
Oh
you
yeah.
know? Uh,
Or label them character flaws or things like
yeah.
that. Like, yeah.
So it's to understand the underlying reasons why we do what we do, it destigmatizes. And this is the most important thing, is that it allows us to change our identity. and to let go of rejection sensitivity. 98% of us have a very real, very intense rejection sensitivity. And so it costs us so much to invest in friends. And
Yeah.
when somebody may or may not like us, it scares the crap out of us. Ambiguity. We need somebody to say, "Hey, I like you." It's like, "Oh, great." that that makes sense. And we calm down when we hear those things. But when we haven't destigmatized, when we haven't done our work, we identify with that. We're so reactive, and we have to understand why we're reactive and what we can do to manage that and let go of the identifying ourselves as victims.
Oh yeah.
And we can have control and make changes in our lives that leads to happiness, meaningful happiness.
Meaningful happiness. That sounds really, really good to me. I'm in. Put me in. Hey, you have a thing coming up. Then I'll let you go. But what do you have coming up? What's coming up for Shane? Or do
So
I call you Dr. Shane? I'm sorry.
Dr. Shane is fine.
Dr. Shane.
Yeah, I'm
What's
I'm not.
next?
So I mean, a lot of what I've been talking about is why community is so important.
Mhm.
Being able to be around other people who talk about their experiences to help us destigmatize, to body double with us, to be around us and give us support when we need it. That is as important as exercise. Um, and it's hard to rank them, but between exercise or being around somebody who's going to help you let go of that identity around failure and kind of cultivate an identity of accomplishment and wellness, I would lean that way. And
Yeah.
so I run groups for neurodiverse individuals, for ADHD um, community members,
Mhm.
and I just to be able to talk about these things, to teach some of these things, to give people a place where they can feel like they belong. And when
That's
you're
awesome.
around other people who have ADHD, it's amazing what that does for your nervous system and your view of yourself.
I love that. That's this it's the people that get you, that you're like, "Oh, I'm not so alone in this slog." And then we'll link all that stuff in the show notes. Do you have stuff coming up, or is it ongoing, or how is it for you?
So it's an ongoing group. I'm
Okay.
actually going to start one here on July 9th.
Oh,
Uh,
it's coming up.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it's happening.
And when I first start, usually it starts small because it's
Mhm.
hard to convince people that the neurodiverse community needs a group. Uh, because they don't understand why. Even a lot of
Yeah.
counselors, don't really understand the cultural piece. We are a culture. We are a
Yeah.
community, and we have to be around our culture if we're going to do our work. And it's really hard to get our professionals in the field to understand that, to make the referrals, to help people understand that. So that's
Yeah.
why what you do, Russ, is so important, is to get that word out there and
Awesome.
help people understand that we are a part of a community. And
Oh,
and a group is a really powerful way to hyperdrive that community and to help people do the work.
hell yeah, man. And we will shout it from the rooftops here. And it's like you said a thing that was very interesting to me, because this is how I was when I think back to when I was first diagnosed. It was like 10 years ago ish. And there's this feeling of like, this is basic stuff. I should be able to do stuff on my own. I shouldn't need help. I shouldn't need somebody. And I think to anytime I've ever done anything really with a lot of momentum, I've had some help. Like I hired a personal trainer, or I hired, you know what I mean? But it's like stuff like, well, I shouldn't need help to do my laundry. I know how to do my laundry. I'm like, but you're not doing your laundry today. So maybe a body double, maybe a horse, maybe. So I don't know. Like, just it's getting over that feeling that we have to figure out how to do everything on our own always. I don't know. I'm I'm a huge advocate for the group.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And there are so many skills to help us learn how to do that effectively, how to body double, how to get enough novelty in our life, how to add the
Yeah.
intensity and the stimulant without reaching for anxiety or substances. And I just love the work of being able to like help people do that. And just like you, Russ,
That's awesome, dude. And you're like
amazing work.
it's super smart about it. I love we could chat for hours, man. But I will let you go and thank you for coming and talking to us. And hopefully this you can come back on. That's really because it was pretty rad.
I would love that. And thank you for having me.